our original ICP, I thought we would be selling into sales teams because of my sales background, because I built this for myself. I realized pretty quickly that marketing leaders and marketing teams wanted to buy Sendoso and enable the sales team to use it. We originally started calling ourselves an engagement delivery platform. We thought we wanted to be catchy and unique. That really failed after, 3-4 months. Prospective buyers are spending more of their time doing their own research and coming up with their own conclusion on what product they want to buy, or shortlisting a couple vendors themselves, even before they talk to sales.
Hey, welcome to the Message Market Fit podcast. I'm your host, Chris Silvestri, and if you're new here, this is a show where I chat with B2B SaaS folks in marketing, product, growth, and founders about how they join the conversation already happening in their customers' minds. We dive deep into their thinking, their systems, and their playbooks to see how they empathize with their audience and speak to them in a way that resonates, so they're compelled to take action. Join us and learn how you too can shape your messaging strategy and write copy that truly resonates and differentiates you. I'm super excited about my guest today, Kris Rudeegraap. Kris is the co-CEO of Sendoso, a direct mail and gifting platform that helps sales and marketing teams break through the noise and build better relationships with prospects and customers. In this episode, we chat about how Kris' decade in sales inspired him to create Sendoso, the evolution of their messaging from features to outcomes, and how companies can use strategic gifting to generate millions in pipeline. Let's dive right in. Hey Kris, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. This is awesome.
I have a big question to start, which is, what does it take to craft a message that stands out?
Gosh, that's a great question. And standing out is probably the hardest thing in today's world because of how noisy it is. I think it depends on what that message is used for. Is it messaging for your website? Is it messaging in your email? Is it messaging in your ads? I think there's probably, is it a message in your gift that you're sending out? And so I think there's different things that you can do for all of those that really make it stand out.
Context matters more than anything. All right. I'm curious about what inspired you to build the Sendos, which is a pretty unique idea. It stands out on its own almost. I know that competition is popping out, but I'm curious about what prompted you, what inspired you.
Yeah. And for those listeners who don't know about Sendoso yet, so we're a corporate gifting and direct mail platform. So we're used by sales and marketing and success teams to send out gifts, direct mail, you name it, swag, handwritten notes, gift cards, anything you can really send out, with the goal to break through the noise and build better relationships with prospects and customers. And so I spent about a decade in sales myself before starting the company 8 years ago. And I saw that sending things out worked really well. I was on a call and I heard a dog bark and I sent a dog toy as a follow-up, or I'd go grab some swag in the marketing closet and send it over to prospects and write handwritten notes thanking them for being on demos. It worked really well. So I knew there was something there, but when I went to find a software to automate it and to streamline it, there was nothing there 8 years ago. And so that's why I started Sendoso, to integrate into your tech stack, build a global software platform or marketplace, making it easy to click a button and send stuff out, or set up automations to send stuff out.
I'm curious, specifically, you come from sales. How did your sales background influence the company's initial vision right away?
Yeah, so a few things. One is our original ICP, I thought we would be selling into sales teams because of my sales background, because I built this for myself. I realized pretty quickly that marketing leaders and marketing teams wanted to buy Sendoso and enable the sales team to use it. So sales was more of an influencer or a champion in the sale, but not the end buyer. So that was one thing I learned. Being in sales, it did help me go get our first customers very quickly, because I was not shy to go jump on the phones or Sendoso or send emails out to prospect like day zero. Even before we had our platform live, while we were in product development, we had 30 or 40 customers lined up because I just went to start selling day zero. So that really helped. Being in sales also helped with recruiting. So selling those first employees on why they need to join Sendoso was critical. And then selling VCs and investors and why it was critical to invest. And we raised over 150 million to help scale the company. And so I had to use my sales skills to help sell the dream of Sendoso to investors still.
Yeah, super interesting. You mentioned that Yeah, you were targeting sales at the beginning, then switched to marketing. How did you figure out that you were missing opportunities?
It was really just following the sales process. And when we prospected the sales teams, they would listen, but then they would ultimately, as part of that sales process, say, hey, let me go get my marketing leader. Let me go get my VP of demand gen. Let me go get my VP of field sales who would also like to be a part of this. And then that person really raised their hand to say, hey, send me the contract, I'll sign it, or I've got budget for this. And we realized that marketing had more budget. So it was really just listening through the prospect journey and through building pipeline that we found that marketing had better budgets and better alignment towards buying a tool like ours.
So how did it go? Did you start initially crafting messaging, targeting sales, and then slowly, gradually transition? How did that
Yeah,
process go?
exactly. And there's a bit of like category creation messaging too that went into that because for salespeople and marketers, like the opportunity to send gifts in direct mail was something that some of them have done manually, but it was a brand new category to really use software to enable this. And so there was a lot of crafting the messaging, both from our prospecting outbound, from our website, but really just a lot went into thinking about how do we solve problems in this new category that we created.
Yeah, and speaking of category, so the sending platform, right? Is that the category that you
Yes,
define yourself as?
it's pretty interesting. So we've gone back and forth with how we define the category. Actually, some learnings along the way. We originally started calling ourselves an engagement delivery platform. We thought we wanted to be catchy and unique. That really failed after, I don't know, 3, 4 months. We just said, that's a terrible name. Let's get rid of it. We then wanted to be a little bit more broad and we moved our category to sending platform. And then now we've gone back to really a more descriptive category over the last 6-ish, 9 months. And we just call ourselves a direct mail and gifting platform. It's what our customers and prospects call it. And so we said, hey, why create new nomenclature if there's already vernacular that's being used to describe our category?
Yeah, how do you think about, especially if you have something that's fairly new, whether or not going with like a new category or trying to stick with something that's already present in your customers' minds? How do you think about whichever to pick?
Yeah, so I think it's important to be able to relate to maybe a similar category or being able to use terminology that they're already familiar with. We call ourselves a direct mail and gifting platform. It's quite obvious what we're talking about versus when we were calling ourselves an engagement delivery platform. What is that? So I think there is benefit to describing it in new terms. And then there's just a lot of other work that goes into the vision of the category, educational messaging, focusing on familiar language, and a lot of other thought that went into how do we build this category.
Yeah. Did you try initially testing sending platform or another category with prospects, like mentioning it and seeing what feedback you got, what response you got?
We did, yes. And I think we got some folks that would catch on to it, but some people got more confused by trying to name the category something. And in the end, we just really wanted to listen to our customers who really called us a direct mail and gifting platform. And so we went with that. There's also, I think, a lot that goes into the category building, even beyond just the naming of it. You've got to figure out is there unique metrics that go into the category that's unique? Like when I think about like Google, when they created like CPC or even 6sense created like the 6QA score. So you're even like creating new key metrics within a new category, which I think is one layer deep than just naming the category. There's also naming your enemy of the category. Like again, Salesforce did a good job of saying like, on-prem was the enemy, no software. So we try to focus on like cold email by itself and spammy email is the enemy. So I think besides the name, there's probably 5 to 10 other kind of messaging and content and education related concepts you have to come up with.
I'm curious, were you involved initially with the conversations that your team had as well to get that feedback?
100%. Yeah. I think as a founder and CEO, you have to be really dialed in, talking to customers. I think my marketing team early on helped take the ideas, take all of the content we were brainstorming, and then turn it into product marketing, web messaging, slide decks, etc. But I was critically important to the early conversations and the vision of how the category was going to unfold.
Yeah. One question that I always like to ask my clients, customers, when I interview them to understand how they define the category is something, for example, if you had to search on Google for a solution like XYZ, or let's say that you're searching on Google for a solution, what would you type in your keyword? Do you have other ways of testing the ground and finding out what category resonates with people?
I think there's that, which is what you explained, like what people would be searching for. I think there's also the searching for the outcome versus the features or the name of the platform. Like it might be like new ways to build revenue or sales tactics to book meetings. And so some of those Google searches, I think, should be part of your website messaging and optimization and really highlighting the outcomes and results that your category can deliver, because I think that can oftentimes have more search volume than just the category terms themselves.
Yeah. Speaking of messaging that resonates, I know that you guys worked a lot on iterating on your website messaging, especially because it's a product service that it's not like super, it's tangible, but it's not easy to understand, especially online. So you have to get into the process, how it works. So what did you do to iterate on the messaging for the website and other marketing materials?
Yeah, I think we just mentioned focusing on the outcomes, not just the features, because I think people are searching and looking for solutions, not searching for pretty features. So that was one. Wanted to include a lot of social proof, showcasing other type of peers or other people in similar titles that are using the platform. I think social proof is pretty clear. How visual storytelling, how do you use visuals to create messaging than just text, I think is important to today's world. Using like more like summarized skimmers. I think some websites will tend to overuse too much jargon and almost too much keywords. And you need to focus for someone who's just like scrolling through your site, even above the fold versus the below the fold. What does somebody see when they first come in? And can you hook them and grab their attention? I think that was important. Even addressing objections. I think someone's looking at a website, they're already formulating why they don't want to use this, or what are the rebuttals, or what are the misconceptions. And so we tried to figure out what would all the objections be, and how do we formulate call outs on our website to address those. Personalization, I think, is key. How do we personalize down to incoming traffic based on the industry, the persona, so we can speak to the person versus just general information. A lot of different.
Yeah, I see also that you have a user product name on the homepage as well.
Yeah, that's something that we've done and had for a long time. I think having the ability to not just gate all your content with a demo request, but having a more interactive, clickable demo and product tour is a great way to help website visitors understand what you do and even see your website or your product and software in action. Because I think, again, it goes back to the visual story. You could say, oh, you can send direct mail in Salesforce, but if you're not sure what that is, you might think about it differently. But if you can see it, you're like, I get this. It's a little extension that sits inside of Salesforce. I can click a button and then it pops up which gifts I want to send. And then I can select it, write a note, and click send. And then you have that aha moment. So that's where like visually storytelling, I think, is key to websites. And I think product tours are a great way to do that.
Yeah, I spoke with someone else in one of the first episodes, actually, of the podcast. Someone from Navatica demo, product tour demo platform.
That's what you.
Okay, yeah. And they mentioned they did a study, I think, at the beginning of the year that showed that something like the click-through rate from product tours, demos, interactive product tours increased the click-through rate from 8% to 30%. Can you share some of the improvements or changes that happened since you started using this interactive?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I can tell you that when talking to our web marketing team and my CMO, they were very happy with the success of adding the product tour. We've had this for a really long time, and it's been something that we saw some spikes in traffic from when we added it, and then we increasingly see it being a part of the website that gets a lot of clicks and views. So,
yeah, it's probably also a good qualification tool because people invest some time to go through it, and you're pretty much sure that they want to know more about the product.
Correct. And the other thing that I think is a trend in B2B sales and marketing is prospective buyers are spending more of their time doing their own research and coming up with their own conclusion on what product they want to buy, or shortlisting a couple vendors themselves, even before they talk to sales. I've seen
Yeah.
some stats where it's 60, 70, 80% of buyers are like already ready to make a decision before they even talk to sales. And website needs to be able to really answer all their problems, speak to the buyer's pain points, focusing on the outcomes, all those different things so that when they go talk to the buyer, they can get into the weeds more and also get ready for the proposal. But I think maybe a decade ago, buyers were much more inclined to just go to the website, click request demo, and instantly that was all they did. Now there's
Yeah.
way more research that's being done, as well as a lot more back channeling and talking to your peers before you even request a demo too.
Yeah. Again, speaking of visual, I wanted to look at them and I'll share some screenshots as well in the show notes. But looking at your value proposition, you use a dynamic headline. So you basically say, I want to, and then all the different metrics increase, my
Yeah.
response rate, and it changes, right?
Yep.
There are controversial opinions on using those kinds of headlines just because some people say readers are not staying there to read all of those variants. Or, yeah, how do you think about that and why as well? I was curious to know why you
Yeah.
went that way.
I think our thought process there is that our product can solve a lot of different problems. And so this is one way for us to showcase all the different problems we solve for, but do so with keeping it above the fold. So I think combining that with the subheader below that talks about the results, helping revenue teams double win rate, 6x second call rates, and close deals 29% faster, will hopefully hook the web visitor into wanting to sit through that little dynamic headline.
Yeah, and that's the part that I actually love. The fact that, okay, you have this dynamic headline, but also then you back it up with super specific points, like as you mentioned, the double win rate, 6x second call
Mhm.
rates and close deals, because a lot of companies might have the dynamic headlines, but then they don't follow it up with something as specific. In this case, I think it works really well because you actually show that you know what you're talking about and it resonates with the results that your specific target audience wants.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it goes back to selling the outcome, not the feature. We could have, in that second sentence, said, send gift cards and wine and t-shirts, or like you can store inventory, or you can track analytics in your dashboard. But instead, we're selling the results of what you can get with all those features. And I think that's what buyers want to see.
Yeah. For a product like Sendoso, I imagine you guys go through a lot of different touch points in your buyer's journey. So I was curious to know, how do you make sure that your messaging addresses both the high level decision makers, but also the users directly?
Yeah, I think specifically on our website and also in some of the other content, we tend to have a solution section that ties in more deeper to the end user so that you can toggle in to talk if you're a marketer, if you're in sales, even if you're in people teams and HR, you can click into these and read very specific examples targeted to that persona. Those are also used heavily in our ad landing pages, as well as when we're doing outbound prospecting and linking prospects to different parts of our website to learn more. We'll personalize those or send them more directly to landing pages within our site.
With personalization, what do you mean exactly? Do you have other specific landing pages or do you have dynamic personalization on those pages?
We do a bit of both. We have ABM, account-based marketing targeted accounts where we're trying to target specific accounts, but then we have targeting based on the persona, like a marketing leader or a demand gen leader. And so we're trying to get specific with our messaging as close as we can. It's a challenge and an opportunity for us because Sendoso can be used by such a broad range of individuals, from different parts of the marketing team, different parts of the sales team, different parts of the customer account management and success team. So it creates a huge opportunity to sell to different types of buyers, but it then also makes it so that we have to have many more different landing pages and try to call out different things so that we're not too generic.
Yeah, yeah. You have to be super granular to those touch
Exactly.
points. When it comes to research and informing your messaging strategy, what type of research do you typically do and how is it installed? I like to think of like a research process being installed in a company so that you always are in touch with your customers. Yeah, what type of research do you
typically
A ton
like
of
to
stuff.
conduct?
I think there's web analytics and analysis, heat map tracking, watching web sessions of where people are clicking, stopping, scrolling past, getting stuck. So there's that kind of analysis on the website specifically and the data associated with it. There's then kind of customer advisory boards or CABs that we have where we'll go and ask them very specific questions. And that could be messaging related. It could be content related that we want to get their opinions on. So that's critical to have that type of group. There's then an internal group like myself, head of marketing, where we'll have our own opinions and our own gut instincts on what type of messaging we should be using. And so we'll have that being a contributed factor into that. We'll also see industry trends, search trends, topics that are happening at industry conferences and keywords or messaging used around that we will be able to use to come back and learn from. And I think all that plays into ultimately how your messaging evolves. And I think to your point, you want to use some kind of framework so that you can evolve your messaging. And if you look at like the way back or our web archives from 8 years ago, our messaging was so much different and it just constantly changes.
What are some of the major milestones, if you can remember?
I think milestones would maybe the bigger changes that we've done was really we went away from heavy feature selling to more outcome selling. That was a big milestone for us. Really going from a very generic website to very specific hundreds of different landing pages targeting different types of personas when we're doing more targeted outbound and dynamic ads, which in the early days, we just didn't have the resources to do that. And then, I think the visuals of the website have also been milestones changing as visual storytelling has changed for us.
Yeah. Going back to the research, I know that you do something very interesting to share research data. I think in Slack, you mentioned, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have a Slack group that we share internally with each other on research. We have customer Slack groups. Yeah, we use Slack for that.
Yeah. So is it basically sharing what customer feedback, what kind of data do you share with teams, or your expectations in terms of how your team should use that data?
Yeah, so we're sharing feedback from surveys or meetings with customers through some Slack groups. We'll have like our G2 and other review sites pushing the reviews into Slack, which is helpful because you can go in there and see how the customer is positively position your product or service. So that's helpful. And then I think in our Slack community with our customers, we can quickly chat with them and ask them real-time feedback on different messaging changes. I think Slack's just been a helpful way to correlate all the information together and have an area to collaborate around.
Yeah. Is that an automated system or is it like manually shared?
Some of it's automated, some of it's manual.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Super interesting. I wanted to ask for the research as well. Do you also use in-product data to inform maybe your messaging or choices in messaging strategy?
Some more of our messaging is informed by our website than our in-app product. I think by the time they're in our product, they've gone down probably a bit of a different journey. And we do change the messaging and like some of the vernacular in our product from time to time, but it's more for descriptive purposes, for driving usage, for driving adoption, for clarifying confusing parts of our application. Not as much for more like top of funnel messaging, really trying to showcase the value that we provide or hooking people into converting on our website.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of the product, I was curious about, do you have any examples of how your customers use the product to drive demand, the retention, and specifically, connecting their company's messaging to the actual value that they communicate through the gifting?
Yeah. So I'll answer that in two parts. The first part is we have a gazillion examples on our website too. You can go to customer stories. A few that stick out to me that I love sharing. Gong is a great customer of ours. They've sent out these little pinatas. They've generated over 30 million in pipeline from those pinatas, which are really cool. Gainsight's another customer that they send out a book the CEO wrote and generate, I think, something like 8 million in pipeline from just sending out that book, which was really a great send. But another customer of ours sends out Yeti mugs, which do really well for them. And they've actually tracked it. For every dollar they spend on sending out Yeti mugs, they generate over $4 in pipeline from it. So it's way better than other channels that have a lower return on investment. So Sendoso is one of the best returning for them. which is really cool to see. Lots more stories. And again, going back to the visual storytelling, if you're interested, we have a customer section and a resources section on the website that show a lot of different examples. But back to your messaging perspective on how our customers use our product, it's actually pretty fascinating because along with sending the gift, you'll attach a handwritten note or a printed note or an email written note. And so the message that goes along with the gift is very critical in terms of how do you drive conversion from direct mail and gifting, and how do you come across very personal. There's a couple ways to deep dive into that. One is we suggest personalizing in kind of three different ways. One, personalizing around the individual. So Kris likes golf, Kris likes plants, Kris has a dog. And so you can personalize the message or the gift based on Kris. You can also personalize around the signal. Well, hey, Kris just got promoted. Let's send a bottle of champagne and let's personalize around that signal and the message related to that signal. The third is personalizing around the action. So if you want to get Kris to come join you at an exec golfing event, maybe you're sending out some golf balls and a message that's personal to that. So I think that's the person, the signal, the action is how you should think about personalization. We also have a feature we built last year called Smart Messaging and takes into account puns. And it'll actually use AI to write the message for you or draft the first version for you. And the beauty of that is it takes into account the amazing ChatGPT-like message functionality, but it takes into account what's the item you're sending, what's the outcome you're trying to achieve, who are you as the sender, who's the recipient, where are they located? And lots of times they'll craft really funny messaging or more creative, unique messaging that grabs your attention. And I think that's been really critical to help our customers convert and drive more results using AI.
Yeah. Do you see that this kind of gifting is something that companies can do at scale, or is it very personalized, individualized? How does it work?
Yeah, so I think that you can do both. I think the ability to do it at scale is why you'd use a platform like Sendoso, because you can enable 10, 20, 2,000, 10,000 sellers to have a single platform that tracks all the results, that gives them access to click and send things at their fingertips. And all the heavy lifting of the operational delivery and tracking and procurement and supply chain, all that happens behind the scenes. We also have automations and triggers based on marketing platforms, sales platforms, other platforms. So even things like, hey, I want to make sure that before a meeting, my calendar, I want to send over a coffee e-gift reminding them to join the meeting. Or for every new customer where in CRM, the opportunity equals closed won, automatically send this customer welcome kit with this dynamic message. And so you can automate a lot of these different things that you want to send out throughout the prospect or customer journey.
Yeah. When it comes to go-to-market strategy, do you see Sendoso being a good option for specific maybe use cases in particular, or it's pretty much for everything people can think of?
So I think about it as a high level. Sendoso is like a secret weapon that you can be used both from a solving a leaky bucket. And what I mean by that is you might have, hey, I don't have enough top of funnel pipeline. I can introduce gifting and direct mail campaigns to drive more pipeline. Or I don't get my demo show rates are only 60%. How do I increase that to 90%? Oh, you can send a coffee or lunch e-gift the morning of a demo to get them to show up. Or, hey, our win rates against competitors are only 10% and we need to get that to 50%. Why don't we use gifting in the account executive journey to build more rapport with the prospects and thank them for the demo and use it as part of the prospect journey? So really what I think about it is it's a tool that can be used, a Swiss Army knife, based on the problems that people have with their sales and marketing funnel. And at the end of the day, if I boil it down, gifting and direct mail is just another communication medium, and used well with other communication mediums. Like you could do a phone call, you could send an email, you could send a text message, you could send a social DM, or you can send a gift or a direct mailer. And you don't necessarily know which of those like 10 things are going to convert or drive the result you're looking for, but you need to use as many as you can, as often as you can, so that you can break through the noise.
Yeah. What are some of the most maybe surprising examples, use case that you've seen customers use Sendoso for?
We've seen people use GIFs in advertising to draw in better conversion, which I thought was interesting, like putting some cookies as an image within your ad graphic and saying, click a demo and get cookies. So that's been interesting. Even
It's like what all direct marketers used to do, like when they used to put like $1 in one of those like forms that they send out.
Yeah, exactly. Some of that stuff, what was old is new again. I also think it's interesting where someone might have a really high performing content piece from their website, and then they are mailing that out to prospects in the mail. So it gets printed and delivered to that prospect and shows up on their desk. And so I think that's interesting. A lot of creativity, a lot of different ways that you can, hey, I'm going to send you a bottle of wine, but there's going to be a lock on it with a combo code with some cute messaging saying, hey, trying to unlock your IT spend, give me a call and I'll give you the code to the wine lock. And you're like, oh, that's creative. So a lot of the gifts people send out are very creative.
Yeah. Is Sendoso, a platform like Sendoso, something that you would recommend early stage companies do? Like maybe companies that are not really clear on their ICP, but would like to maybe branch out and stand out better?
Yeah, I think 100% it's even probably better for stage because one, you need to break through the noise. And if you send an email, someone's going to be like, oh, what's this 10-person startup I've never heard of? Oh, but if you send a gift with that, it breaks through the noise better because there's just more psychological reciprocity to respond to the gift. And so that's important. I think the other way we see early stage startups doing it is building a community of their customers and super fans and using gifting as a way to thank their customers for referrals, to build out their community, to invite them to customer advisory boards. Because in the early years, you need to build this advocacy up because the more customers you have in the early days, the better it can help you scale. So yeah, I think early stage companies benefit a lot from Sendo.
Yeah. Going back to positioning and category as well, from your perspective and all the work that you've done as Sendo, I'm curious to know your perspective if you see any trends in how companies are positioning themselves, and maybe specifically tech companies, and what are some patterns, trends in how companies are positioning themselves and trying to stand out nowadays?
Yeah, I see some positioning around blank is the new blank, positioning against an old legacy provider. So I see that being popular. There's also like the common blank is the Uber for blank or blank is the Airbnb for blank. So I think that works. It will probably work indefinitely because you're comparing yourself to a known product or service that you can relate to. So I think that's key. I think there's companies that are trying to stand out with messaging and using this like enemy approach. Don't send spammy emails and really creating these enemies. And so I think that works well as a trend. And then I think other trends, I think go back to just trying to narrow in on a very niche product and showcase how well you do really well than being very broad.
When it comes to crafting your messaging, but also, narrowing down to that positioning, your platform, I think it's at a very interesting intersection between data, but also creativity. So how do you balance the data and creativity in your own efforts or when you're trying to walk the talk?
Yeah, so I think the data component is critical in informing decisions around how creative you can be. So what I mean by that is we have really interesting data set around what's the right thing to send to the right person at the right time with the right message. And so we might be able to provide you with some data that says Kris likes golfing. And then we can then let the salesperson, the marketer, or our system through a smart send automation pick out the creative gift that is associated with golf. So that's one way where you can use data to inform what you send, but then the person can actually craft the right gift and the right message and use that human creativity. The other piece of data is that we can use data to inform the delivery location, where that gift should go to. We can inform and use data to provide results and reporting in a more automated, streamlined fashion. So you can still be creative, but you don't have to spend all the hours clicking tracking links and looking at the data around it. We can give you data results on the back end instantly.
Yeah, nice. And when it comes to walking the talk, I know that I saw a campaign that you ran. Was it like a Halloween landing page?
Halloween.
Yeah. So I'm super curious. How did you come up with that idea? And Yeah, did you have any research that backed that up, or was it just like a crazy out of the box idea that you tried?
It was actually just a random brainstorm we had around how do we tie in kind of like spookiness in that theme into like how marketers could get a chuckle and laugh around like how spooky are your numbers, and there's some puns we could use that related spookiness and Halloween to some of the results our platform can drive. And then we did a great job, our marketing team did, of really doing a very integrated campaign where we sent out these vampire pinatas. And in addition to that, we had SDRs that were able to send those out. We brought them to conferences. We had dedicated landing page. We ran ads. We ran email marketing automation, and all that tied into the same campaign. So it was great to see digital ads, web landing page messaging, direct mail, field marketing, and outbound sales all in conjunction with the same messaging and the same visual storytelling.
Yeah, and you had a term for the gift. It was swag that stays.
Yeah.
What do you mean by swag that stays?
Yeah, that was another campaign we ran where we wanted to highlight that not all swag is created equal. There are certain things and certain types of swag that maybe you might find less useful, but there's tons of swag that is very useful and stuff that stays around, sticks on your desk, and you keep for years and years. For example, this like Patagonia Sendoso jacket, like I got this last year. I love it. It's getting cold again and I'm using it again. So this is better than maybe something else that you send that's not as useful or doesn't stick around and stay long. So we just tried to, as part of our, again, part of the category at messaging and education, we have to educate our buyers and our customers on how best to use our platform. And part of that is running case studies, running data reports, and then taking back that research and sharing it with our prospects and customers.
Yeah. If you could give one piece of advice to founders or marketers who are working positioning a new product, what would that be?
I would say go talk to both customers and strangers. I think some people will build their own messaging in their own minds and keep it internal with people that are too tunnel visioned and too close to the product or solution. And so I tend to say, along with talking to customers, go talk to a stranger, go talk to your friend's wife or husband who's in a different industry, and make sure that what you're doing kind of resonates, or try to share your messaging with your own wife or husband or boyfriend or girlfriend or partner and get their opinion. So I think it's critical to go talk to people and not just stay in your brain or stay in your colleagues' Zoom meetings.
Yeah. What's next for Sendoso in terms of positioning, messaging, innovations, if you can share, or types of experiments that you're running?
A big focus for us around messaging and product marketing positioning is around just the AI and data that we provide. I think for the first handful of years, we were looked at as this fulfillment, delivery, logistics company. We then really were looked at as this software platform that was really compelling. Now we're transitioning into more of a data company, and the messaging around how you can use this data and AI to better drive conversions and productivity for your team. And so there's some really interesting product roadmap items we're rolling out, and then all of the product marketing around all of that.
Yeah. Just promise me that you're not going to use AI powered in your coffee.
Promise you that.
As far as the AI, how do you use AI? I'm just curious if you use it.
We use AI in a lot of different ways. Like personally, I use it on almost everything I do. I have ChatGPT on another monitor that's up all the time. But then we use AI and how we think about content creation drafts. How do we think about outbound orchestration? How do we think about SEO? How do we think about video snippets? How do we think about sales research, customer usage research? There's just so many different ways. We even yesterday had an internal session with the whole company called AI in Action, where we had someone in engineering, someone in marketing, someone in sales come on into a like kind of an all hands type of meeting to showcase how they're using AI and really crowdsourcing how others are using it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. You're basically using for writing content maybe, or copy, but also there's a lot of strategy seems to understand behind it. Yeah, very cool. Where do you go to learn new things?
Yeah, love looking through LinkedIn feeds. I think that's interesting. And then I use Feedly and subscribe to about 300 different blogs, kind of like an RSS reader. And so I'll scroll through that and find a lot of interesting information, patterns, trends from that.
Do you have a set time every day or once a week, or how do you do it?
It's a mixture of in between. So if I'm in between meetings and have some time, if I'm before dinner, before going to bed, different times where I'm just instead of scrolling through like a TikTok
Instead of doom scrolling?
instead of doom scrolling, I'm feedly learning scrolling.
Nice. Okay. That's a good idea. All right. My last question. I saw that you shared an interesting article of how Starbucks is reintroducing the Sharpie signature on cups,
Yeah.
right? So I wanted to ask, what's your Sharpie moment at Sendoso?
I think the way that I would take that is the Starbucks Sharpie moment was just really driving personalization and creating this personalized feeling that the coffee goers got. And it was lost when they had that kind of sticker and no name on the thing. For us, it was way back in the early years when we decided to allow our customers to include handwritten messages with the gifts they send. And we had to figure out how to build that complexity into our workflows. So I think our handwritten notes are the handwritten names written on Starbucks cups.
Yeah,
So
injects that humanity element, the human element that's being lost,
exactly.
especially now with the app. Awesome. All right, Kris, thank you so much. It's been super, super helpful, very insightful. So where can people find you? On LinkedIn, right? Sendoso.com.
Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. If you're curious more about Sendoso, Sendoso.com. I'm sure there'll be some links in the show notes. And then if you want to email me, it's Kris, Kris, @Sendoso.com.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Cheers.
Thanks so much for having me on, Kris. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the pod. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, the best thing you could do to support the show and help me as a small business owner would be to leave a review. Head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and let me know what you think. If you don't want to miss future episodes, subscribe, and if you have any feedback, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, just hit me up on LinkedIn @Christopher Silvestri or Twitter @SilvestriChris. Speak to you next time.